we're going to shoot it, and then we're going to put an intro and an outro to it, and we're going to throw it on YouTube. And, it's funny that some of those things like that are the most well-performing because we live in this world where everyone wants to know things about products, about how to do this, how to do that. So some of our more innovative products where that maybe there's not a whole lot of content out there about them, by simply recording these things and getting them on there, they organically pick up because there's nothing to compete with.
Put that coffee down.
I'm not here to waste your time, okay? I certainly hope you're not here to waste mine. So I'm going to keep this short.
Helen, we're both in sales. Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman.
Most valuable commodity I know of is information. Wouldn't you agree?
Coffee's for closers only.
Well, hello there, friend. Welcome back to the Behind Your Back podcast with me, Bradley Hartman, founder, CEO of the Behind Your Back Sales Company, where it's our mission to help you sell more, faster, at higher margins, and have more fun doing it. As for this podcast, we talk about leadership, personal productivity, time management, and the craft of selling. And in this episode, you'll hear about marketing in the construction industry. Want to thank our presenting sponsor, Capital One Trade Credit. If you, my friend, are interested in growing sales, increasing cash flow while decreasing risk by leveraging a state-of-the-art digital platform that makes it easier for your customers to buy from you, well, my friend, I think it would be worth your time to check out Capital One Trade Credit. Now, I'm excited to have on the show today my friend, Mr. Ryan Scaife. Ryan is a marketing and branding expert in our LBM space who leads the marketing effort for Lezzer Lumber, which is truly a standout. If you check out YouTube, you check out Instagram, you check out their website, you see what they're doing on LinkedIn, really separate themselves. And I put them in my top 4. I'm not going to go into who they are right now, but I do have a list of the top 4 companies in the country in the LBM space who are doing things differently and extremely well. And Lezzer Lumber is one of them. And Ryan Scaife is a big reason why. Now, Ryan Scaife has an interesting background. He graduated from Lock Haven University of Pennsylvania. The mascot is the Bald Eagles. Yeah, that's right. The bald one, not just the Eagles. There's lots of different universities that have the Eagles for the mascots. How many have bald eagles? I don't know exactly, but I can tell you it's not many. Now, Ryan got out from Lock Haven University and worked in the energy and petroleum industries before starting his own agency, which is called Senergy Marketing, like energy with an S in front of it. So Senergy. So he owns his own marketing agency and he serves as the marketing director within Lezzer Lumber. Kind of a unique arrangement here that I think has broad applicability in our industry. And here's why. On one hand, you get an owner, you get high level of expertise that are part of your team every single week, that Ryan is. And yet, he does have other clients. So he's getting insights and experience in different industries that he can then take and bring into the LBM industry. Again, I think a really smart move on both Ryan, his agency, and Lezzer Lumber. I have zero doubt that you are going to pick up at least 1 or 2 insights that can help you market and sell better based on the insights from Ryan. We talk about developing a content calendar. We talk about Instagram and YouTube specifically. We talk about video production in general. And we talk about really smart ways to get your employees, your product partners, as well as your customers involved. So without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Mr. Ryan Scaife on behalf of Lezzer Lumber. Mr. Ryan Scaife, welcome to the show.
Bradley, thanks for having me on. I got to get on you about something. When we first met a few months ago, I found out you're a Bears fan. And of course, I'm a Packers fan. So, I'm not sure how well this is going to work.
Well, I just assumed, like everyone in, the state of Pennsylvania, I feel like you were more of a Steelers guy. What's unfortunate set of circumstances led you to be a Packers fan? That's terrible.
Everyone asks me that. My best friend in kindergarten was a big Packers fan, and my whole family's Steelers fan. So I just got sick of it being a young kid, hearing about it all the time, and just kind of got interested in it that way. And he ended up being my best man, and we're still best friends today.
There you go. Well, there's a brief period when I was growing up as the 1985 Chicago Bears kind of faded from my memory and they went back to being terrible. Randall Cunningham kind of burst onto the scene. It was so dynamic, could run and throw. I fell in love with Randall Cunningham. So then I became, for a period, a diehard Philadelphia Eagles fan for just a few years. And I think I had the jerseys back when they were buying jerseys. And then I came to my senses. And I met some real Eagles fans, and I'm like, those people are terrible. I can't be like that.
I couldn't agree more. Similar story with me with Randy Moss and the Vikings, being a big Packers fan, but he was that big, explosive athlete in my childhood.
This is how I like to start off the pod. We realize that we're mortal enemies in some regard to life, and then we're going to talk about business. So let's do it. Flashing back to that time when we met, late January, I believe. I roll into town. You guys had a big kind of sales training and show the following day. We packed the place, and then they start off with a couple videos. When this happens, you have a lot of attention. You have a video going in, and it's from a lumber building material dealer. Sometimes I just get a little queasy because sometimes they're long and painful and not well produced. I had the opposite feeling right off the bat. It was like a highlight reel with great music in the background, fast paced. A lot of different people. There's drone footage. Let me just ask you there, where did that come from and how do you think about that? Because it was phenomenal.
Yeah. So my company really focuses on creating that kind of vision, if you will, and helping companies explore that. So by nature, I'm a sports fan and I've grown up around sports, and I've always been fascinated by the use of imagery and the audio and the video and all those things that come in together, and nobody does it better than ESPN.
Right.
So we kind of take that style on those year-end videos and bring that out in the video, and we've been doing those for about 3 or 4 years now. And the goal of those are really twofold. One is to kind of recap the previous year for people to remember. So this is just different things that marketing has been involved with throughout the year. And we're making sure as we're out there getting video that at the end of the year, this is a big deal. And we're going to collect all these things and make this video. So it's always in our forefront throughout the year. But then the other aspect of that is we're going to use it as kind of setting the tone for the next year.
Okay.
And, as we're transitioning from one year to another, and then as things like COVID and those things have happened, it's really made it interesting and setting the tones and setting the expectations, but also remembering the previous year and the successes the company's had.
Yeah. Well, I went down a rabbit hole and then kind of followed up on YouTube, and I saw there's a 2019 version, which was John Cougar Mellencamp singing Small Town. And again, just got so many emotions with that. And I think for folks like us who love our industry, and maybe that's what really spoke to me on a subconscious level, was growing up when the people who do that really, really well, those highlight reels, are the NFL and the NBA and Major League Baseball. And you captured some of that, but for us and our industry. So that was phenomenal. So that was the first video, got a lot of energy going in the room. And then the second video starts. And I'm like, okay, this is where, they double down and it goes from great to poor. Now we're following up with the second video. The second video was with second generation leader, Maurice Lezzer, who had recently passed away. And it was just kind of documentary style, sitting in a chair, telling stories, sharing wisdom. And again, I was blown away with that. Walk me through, what was the context there?
Yeah, so that interview actually was done about 4 years ago. And I'll rewind and say that when that was going on, I was listening to the audio myself and making sure that was all right that day. And it was his granddaughters that were running the interview. And
okay. I
remember that happening and him phrasing certain things. And I remember listening to the audio and thinking, right in that moment, thinking, man, this is some stuff we're going to put in a vault, because if I put this out right now, it's not going to have the same impact than what it will someday. And parlaying that with how much the family and the company has meant to myself and so many other people, it was important that we hit that right. So in the video you saw, things like the amount of time we spent on the pause between the end of the video to the next, the transition and the way that came in, those all factor into the moment. So if that's not done perfect, you lose it, right? Like you were saying, you're just waiting for it to be an epic fail, right? Well, that's things that ESPN does really well. You can see it when they do these, Tom Rinaldi was used to doing for years. It's the perfect kind of segue into certain things. So those moments matter. And we had to make sure that dealing with something as monumental as what Maurice Lezzer was to their company was handled the right way and in the right tone and respected him and his family and his legacy and the company moving forward.
Yeah. Well, right now, and this has been going on for a while, and it's going to continue on for a while, there are so many folks that I would say are somewhere that are still in the business now, that are somewhere in their late 70s to maybe even in their 90s. They're still around. And my approach, my recommendation to several of our clients is whether you guys do this independently with someone who's an expert in videography or we help set it up or whatever that is, how can we capture exactly what you were able to do with Maurice before they move on? But it's the stories and it's the history. And to your point, putting it away in a vault, I think you did something smart where you kind of strategically thought, is there power in this content today? Yes. Will it be even more powerful in a few years? Yes. And I would argue, even as every year goes on, this is going to continue to be even more valuable. And I think if there's like a playbook you have, or we're going to direct people to go to you for this, what you guys were able to do there for someone who we spent a lot of time with video and working with videographers, you made it look easy, but I know it's not. And there are little details there that you guys did really, really well. And again, I just think there's so much talent and experience and wisdom in our industry that they're either moving on literally into another part of their life, or they're moving on into the afterlife. And how are we capturing that as companies and families? And I love the fact you had the granddaughters involved. Overall, just really well done.
Yeah, thank you. And I remember during the whole time of Maurice's passing, and from the time it happened until really that video coming out, and it was, anyone talks to my wife, I had many, many nights with her where we would talk about it because she's really good friends with Dave Lezzer's daughter, and how we handle this and make sure it's right, make sure it's done right. And it was very trying to make sure that was done right. But the man deserves so much respect. And you can tell that by taking one walk down their hallways in Kerwinsville or talking to people that have been around the company. They all have their Maurice stories, the most stories, and what he demanded and what he expected of people. And we had to get it right. And if there's one message that he leaves, it's that you got to keep moving forward. If you don't move forward, then you're doing the opposite.
Yeah. So let me back out just a little bit. We'll fade out for the moment on videos in general. We're going to dive into a little bit of the YouTube. I want to pick your brain on what you guys are doing, which I think is exceptional. I think you are, in my mind, part of maybe another 3 companies of top 4 in our industry that are really leveraging Instagram in a unique, memorable way and getting a lot of mileage out of it from the conversations that I've had with folks around the industry. Talk to me about content calendar and how you plan for that and how you work within a larger organization within Lezzer Lumber to have it look, seems very natural, but I've seen stuff with employees and then product partners and manufacturers and then customers. And you can see that there's never a data dump of just customers. Like they're all kind of feathered in there seemingly very naturally, which leads them to believe someone has put an awful lot of thought behind it. Maybe if you can, just for myself and our audience here, give us a little context about how that content calendar comes together. How far in advance are you planning it, and anything else along those lines?
Yeah, that's a good question. So that process really is ongoing at all times. But if I had to put a mark around where it begins, it actually begins during our planning phase for the next year. So like we would start that in September, October, and it's more so on the budgetary end. So we're looking at the budgets for marketing and where we're going to spend our dollars and our time and whatnot. And, you're factoring in these sort of things, and then your schedule starts to come through with vendor events. We have vendor shows every year. We know we're going to highlight those. And we have certain opportunities around different store locations and certain trainings that are going to take place. And you start to see the broad scale of what's going to be on the calendar for the next year. And you use those as your kind of starting points to say, okay, we know that we're going to have content filled around these events.
Yep.
Then we also know that through our vendor program that we're going to feature certain products or certain vendors at different points throughout the year. So that fills up another segment. So that's where it all kind of begins. And then to get into the day-to-day side of it, we're more recently using a tool called Loomly, which really helps us with our content calendar and planning. And to begin with, it allows us to sit down literally in a grid form the way you'd expect a calendar.
Yeah.
And it's connected to all of our social accounts. And then we can pick and choose and pull right up our content and kind of pre-schedule those things out. And then they'll just fire off at different channels. So you could have it go to one channel, all your channels,
Okay.
different focuses. So that's really where it starts, is more starting with the budget side of it and kind of rolling into, what does that mean? What are we budgeting for? That's a certain amount of events, certain amount of programs. And then around that, we'll fill it in the blanks.
Cool. What was the name of that tool? Do you mind spelling that for me?
Yeah. Loomly, Loomly.
Loomly.
Really cool.
All right. Well,
really easy to use.
Okay. Well, this is one of the platforms I've been pushing more, is called Loom, Loom, rhymes with Zoom, Zoom, but it's more of you can pull up a website or a PDF, and then it kind of has your, almost like a picture in picture, your face in the upper right-hand corner. So this is Loomly, Loomly. Okay.
Yep. And it's a social media calendar management system. Yeah, it's great. Now, I've been searching for one for years that did exactly what I wanted it to do, and this is it for me.
It is. Okay. All right. Well, that's great feedback.
Very easy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that simplifies it for me as well. And I think what caught me there with what you said is we are starting the planning for that in September or October of the previous year.
Yes.
And right now for us, other than our podcasts, the rest of our kind of disjointed social media execution right now, which our goal is to improve, which is why I'm getting some free consulting from you, Ryan. We're lucky if we were 72 hours ahead of this thing. And you're like, no, dude, we are looking, in some cases, 12 to 15 months ahead of time. But that makes sense. Vendor events and training and seasonality and different products make sense. And when do you build decks and when don't you in Pennsylvania, et cetera. It sounds to me like that really builds the skeleton, which is obvious. And then, kind of fleshing it out from there with a tool to get more detailed. That helps me kind of think through this for sure.
Yeah. And, the key there to remember is when we're planning out several months in advance, we're not planning out the actual post to say, on, 7 months from now, it's going to be this contractor installing this deck, because we don't know that information.
Yep.
What we know is that certain points of the year call for certain things. So we're going to keep an eye out. We're going to peel off our blinders, if you will, to certain parts of the business during different points. Whereas it helps give you a guideline whenever you're actually going in week to week or month to month to build out your Loomly calendar. You know what strategically you're trying to accomplish.
So let me ask you that. If you have, say, this was from a while back when I was very impressed with it. Say you do have a Blocksdorf contracting testimonial. Really well done. Music, the footage of him walking through the custom home he built was fantastic. Say you do plan in advance, hey, we're going to do a contractor testimonial here. How long before you actually share that with the world are you making that decision? Blocksdorf Contracting, they are going this Thursday in this month.
Yeah. So it happens it's kind of organic. So a lot of times what will happen is someone in the company, Casey or someone, will reach out and say, hey, we got this project going on at this part of the company. Here's the contact. So we start that period. We make contact with the Lezzer representative who's dealing with them. And then we'll schedule a time to get out with that contractor or that project. Then whatever that date is, we'll send the videographer out. We'll send, myself or Bill Thomas, our marketing manager, out. They'll have a creative brief. He'll know exactly what's supposed to be shot that day, maybe what interviews we're going to do, those sort of things. All in all, the whole process, start to end, obviously no two projects are the same, but we've gotten it down to where we can pull something off literally from the time we shoot it to the time we have a full edit done. We can get them out there as soon as a week.
Wow.
Sometimes
Okay.
even less, sometimes even a day or two. Depends on, how important it is. Other times, we'll put it on the schedule 3-4 weeks in advance.
Okay.
But nothing more than that, I'll tell you. So we can get
All right.
stuff done really quickly, but nothing more than 3 to 4 weeks in advance, because we also don't want the content to become stale, if you will. And if things change, you got to stay on that nonstop.
Yeah. So you mentioned interacting with Casey. The question I've got is whether it's executive leadership at that level or it's local GMs or with the folks where, I spend most of my time with the sales pros. I'm constantly trying to nudge our clients to really bring marketing and sales closer together and have this be a consistent dialogue to say, hey, we spent this time and energy to create this video. It's coming out on Friday. How do you guys share this? How can this be another tool in the toolbox for a salesperson? How do you interact with them? And let me tell you what, I'll simplify that. The executive leadership is probably pretty easy. They're the ones cutting the check. They call, you're going to pick up the phone. You're going to make that happen. Let's think about the GMs and the sales pros. What's that sort of ongoing communication look like with you on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis?
Yeah. One thing the executive team does very well across the board at Lezzer is they create a clear pathway for us to constantly stay involved with the sales pros.
Okay.
So there's an open door policy to some extent that says, look, go out there and interact with our sales force. Let's find out what's going on. So those projects don't need to come just from the executive level all the time. There's several times they come from the sales pros themselves. And then, we take them up to the executive level and ask for permission to follow through with them. But that's just that interaction directly tied between us and the sales pros within the company. And they do that through a number of different platforms, certainly through different events we have at the company throughout the year where we see each other, obviously, digitally through emails, through phone calls, text messages, those sort of things, following our pros on places like LinkedIn, and occasionally just picking the phone up and calling them and saying, hey, dude, what's going on? Like, what do you have out there? Hey, we need some projects. What do you have on the horizon? We have a monthly managers call where we're on the phone with them talking these things through. And we always bring that sort of thing up and ask them to continually send these things our way. So it's a constant dialogue that the executive level commits to us and we commit to them to make sure that we're getting out there on these things.
Okay. I've just really noticed just looking through your feed, you can tell you're a design, you're a brand guy. There's really consistent colors and themes. You have a very specific typography or font family that you use. I'm a nerd on this point. What is that? What are you guys using?
That's Vitesse Black. Bill Thomas, our marketing manager, knows that very well at this point. When they hired me a few years ago, it was, I think, the first thing I did, maybe first or second thing I did was, Bill, no longer do we use any other font for headlines but this. And he's adopted it very well. Yeah, I'm a brand guy through and through. You got to make sure it's consistent. It stays true. You're allowed to deviate a little bit, but it's got to stay within the lines.
Yeah, and I saw a little bit of that where you can see, all right, you're not super OCD, but I think that typography, it's strong, it's chunky, it fits well, but it's different than the Lezzer logo. Because sometimes I'll see the exact same typography in the logo or the brand itself, and then in the headline, and all of a sudden it just kind of washes through. So I thought you guys just did a really nice job there, and I could tell that there was that consistency. Are there other first principles that you think about when you said, hey, when we came in, there's a few things we did. We selected this, we put some brand standards in around this. Anything else come to mind where if we have listeners who are thinking, well, if you look through our feed and you look through Lezzer's, ours looks like we have 13 different 15-year-olds posting stuff. Theirs looks really unified and cohesive. are there first principles that come to mind that you would say is, hey, here's what you start, either don't do these things or do follow these principles?
Yeah. So for us, before we even get into the social platforms, we'll take a really good, strong look at the company culture and who they are and what they do.
Okay.
So we'll spend a lot of time looking at things like their mission statement, their vision. What does their customer base tell you about them? What does the competitors see in them? And we look for these things to help guide our way for things like social media, for branding, for all those sort of things. So when you're getting down to the specifics of the font, the typeface looking a certain way that describes Lezzer, it describes quality, right? It describes a sense of strength and all these sort of things. The quality, the thing that I stood out for me with Lezzer when we started working with them was they're not the low cost. That's not their goal. They're a very quality oriented company across the board, not just in their products, but their people, the way they do business, these sort of things. So I think that was one of the first things we did with them was we defined, kind of summed up who they were in a nutshell. And that was quality you could build on, quality in your people, quality in your products, quality in your places and your projects, right? So all of those things come through with the work we do and the way we present the company with social media, with their branding. So, those things all matter. Look within the company's core values and then try to match that with the brand itself and the marks and the typography, the messaging, all these sort of things.
Okay. So I'll dig in here. There's one that I absolutely loved because I thought it spoke to the need to generate more interest among younger talent to bring folks in. Tell me about the one I saw recently. I didn't write down the date, but you'll know it. It was Mitchell Sutika, hashtag
Sutika,
signed. It reminded me, go back to it reminded me of like kind of a cool baseball card sort of thing. What was that? Hashtag signed. What was that all about?
Yeah. So obviously you being a former football player, a college football player, you probably follow it, that National Signing Day is such a big deal, right?
Yeah. Right.
Sitting at the table, putting the hat on, signing your letter of intent. That's such a big thing. And it has been. And as that's evolved over the years, then things like commitment graphics have been so big. So you follow any major college football program, Alabama, Penn State, Ohio State, whatever, they put these things out legally the way they can. So you can tell a lot of times Penn State feeds it to the recruits because the way it's designed.
Yeah.
Even though they're not quote unquote legally allowed to mention the prospect's name until he's signed. But we're kind of stealing that. I don't want to say stealing, but kind of using that kind of theme, if you will, and taking it and saying, look, this is cool. Kids like it, right? The younger generation's into this. They recognize it. It makes sense to them. So showcasing a new hire like that was something we wanted to do. Our HR department came to us with this local organization that was doing a signing day. And right away, that's when I started thinking like, hey, let's go. Let's lean into this as hard as we can. Like, let's make this feel like it's, a Division I athlete signing with our program. So that's kind of where that came from.
Yeah, it was really neat. I would encourage people to look it up, but I think you're right. By the way, you mentioned all the worst schools possible, Alabama, Penn State, and Ohio State. I was hoping you just give me like a Southern Cal or Fresno State or the Harvard of the Midwest, University of Illinois, anyone but those. But as soon as I saw it, I'm like, yes. And if I'm Mitchell, I'm thinking he's tagging this thing, he's sharing it with his friends, and all of a sudden, just curious, was I know you had his high school. I think he went to Kerwinsville High School, right? Yep. But my thought was he's going to share this. And what are we all looking for right now? We're looking to generate more interest and enthusiasm among this next generation to come into it. I'm like, I think that's part of the answer. I was just so impressed with it.
Yeah, thank you. And it's just something that you have to be willing to look outside your industry. And I think that's where places like Lezzer might benefit from taking someone like myself to come in, because we see it from different veins of light. I have to, because of the nature of what I do. But, you're always looking, so that the pop culture things are so important, and keeping a beat on what those things are really what's going to relate to the younger demographic today, that next wave of workers.
Yeah, I'm going to rattle off just a couple different things here as we think about some of the product partners that you have featured on Instagram or YouTube. On the product side, you had, it looked like Doug Sturco of Simpson Strong Tie. You had Brad Whitlock of GAF. And then it looks like you guys did a retweet of Greg Coon's Homes, where they were sharing a post of installing your trusses. How do you think about bringing in either manufacturers or partners or viewers, or where you guys are stocking dealers for a certain product line? And how do you kind of bring them and weave them in a way that avoids, I think what I hear most often when I bring up this concept is, well, hey, once you start featuring fill in the blank, keep in mind, we also work with competing company, fill in the blank. And how do we make sure we don't inadvertently create all this drama around favoritism? You know, Ryan, how do we do that? But I think you guys have done a really nice job with this. And then also you've done these videos kind of along the same line with Brian. You do these videos where it's a guy on screen walking through a whole product series together on YouTube. Is that right? Brian Tripp?
Yeah, Brian Tripp. Yep. He's an announcer for the Big Ten Network. Does a lot of stuff here at Penn State. So we connected with him a few years ago.
Oh, okay.
You know, Lezzer does a really good job of, they have a really good partner program, vendor program. And a lot of times it's based on certain categories or areas of interest. And, you know, we really work hard with the vendors to make sure that we're getting those items showcased. So a lot of times we focus on vendors or products based on, you know, things like co-op or, you know, the sales volume or whatever. But what we're really focused on is making sure that we're connecting our products and our vendors with our sales reps, with our customers. And we do that through means like video. If you go on our YouTube channel, for example, we have plenty of vendor videos that we release. A lot of times they're product highlights. They're just, you know, short couple minute videos to use to show what's new with each vendor. We'll use those in a number of different ways. Some of our stores use them to train new hires, you know, counter guys and things like that.
Sure.
So they can kind of get a quick synopsis of what different vendors are. We always try to shoot them with our vendors themselves, so it creates a face to the name. It really helped us even through COVID. We used a vendor video series to help keep customers engaged while they were done on the lockdowns and things like that.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you teed up YouTube. I might frame this as the asking for a friend segment here. Asking for a friend. Say there was an individual, say you knew them, say they were a mildly good-looking ginger Chicago Bears fan, hypothetically, who has understood for a while videos and this thing called YouTube is a potential way for people that are comfortable creating content that they should be spending more time and leveraging more. But to date, they've been abysmal and or absent from that. Part of it would probably be, hey, if you have a podcast, you should let people know. All right. Say you have a newsletter, you should let people know. Yeah, probably makes sense. What other ways would you say, hey, if you're growing, if you believe in you're creating content that can actually help your audience and you know your audience well, here are some things that you can, you know, it's not a hack. You're not going to make magic overnight. But if you do these things methodically, over time, you can build your audience like Lezzer has.
Yeah. So first and foremost, everyone believes that when you're doing video, it's got to be top-notch A quality stuff. And if we were going back 5 years ago, that might be more true. But the way things have happened with COVID and with all these different things, it really helped accelerate that not everything has to be top level, you know, professionally produced type of stuff. I'm not going to lie and tell you that it can be junk. That's not true. But, you know, you have certain tools that can help you get there. For example, you have this podcast, and I know a big thing with pods now are taking not only the podcast, but also putting it on YouTube and putting the video back and forth, just like what you have here.
Right.
You know, you look at different places that do that, and they're just as effective. So it doesn't have to be the most perfect content. I'd say focus on the audio. You obviously would understand that. You know, your audio, people will notice great audio before they'll notice bad picture, right? So if you have good audio, they're going to notice it. If you have bad audio, they're really going to notice it. So, you know, make sure that those things are on your forefront. It's a lot of things that's kind of become the norm for us to have videos like what we're having right now and then using those on YouTube.
Yeah.
And the other side thing, Bradley, one other thing I'll add, I'm sorry.
Sure.
One other thing I'll add to YouTube is that always ask for the subscribes at the end. Always ask people, hey, like, subscribe, do this, do that. That's like rule number 1A that we don't even do very good job at, that we need to be doing. But if you want to grow subscribers, ask for them. Make sure you're linking to the subscribe button in your videos and those sort of things. That'll really help grow your following quickly.
Yeah. Well, one of our mantras, and had a few Lezzer folks came out to our sales fundamentals workshop that we peppered throughout our 2 days, is AFWYW, which is ask for what you want. Don't be afraid. And that call to action. Hey, if you watch a video, if you got value from this, subscribe right here, right? And I will oversee a whole series of annoying videos that my 2 kids are watching. And at the end, they're just popping out left and right. It is impossible to not understand the message and what they want you to do next there. Yet I know sometimes my thought is, hey, if it's good enough and we delivered value, they're going to do that. Maybe also ask for what you want, ask for the subscribe, and then continue to make good content.
Yeah. And as it relates to dealers that are listening to this, we really think about things we have going on events wise. If we have a vendor coming out to give a presentation at a lunch or a breakfast or something, hey, we're popping a camera on them, and it could be a 45-minute presentation. That's okay. We're going to shoot it, and then we're going to put an intro and an outro to it, and we're going to throw it on YouTube. And, it's funny that some of those things like that are the most well-performing because we live in this world where everyone wants to know things about products, about how to do this, how to do that. So some of our more innovative products where that maybe there's not a whole lot of content out there about them, by simply recording these things and getting them on there, they organically pick up because there's nothing to compete with.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That's smart. So before we let you go, I want to make sure folks that have listened to this and found value and found you insightful, which I firmly believe many of them will. I certainly have, and appreciate your time here, Ryan. Where can people find more information about you? You do own your own agency. You are working obviously very closely, weekly with Lezzer to help them execute, but you also own an agency where you're helping some other folks. Where might people find more about you and maybe find other ways that they can learn from you guys?
Yeah, my agency is called Senergy Marketing Group. Our website is senergymark.com. That's, just think of energy with an S in front of it, mark.com. So they can look on our website. My email is ryan@senergymark.com.
All right. So I like it. So it's Senergy with, when you said it the first time, I'm like, wait, what? I'm not smart enough to follow. And you're like, energy with an S. I'm like, that makes sense. So senergymark.com is your website, and then ryan@senergymark.com.
Yes, that's correct.
Got it. All right. We'll make sure we put that in the show notes as well. Well, Ryan, thanks, man. This is a big focus for us this year. We're doing a little rebranding. We're trying to simplify, consolidate things. So part of this was really selfish for me after talking to you in January. I'm like, I learned a lot from you in the 10 minutes that we spoke. So appreciate you making time and continue the great work. I think if you're listening to this and you are not following Lezzer on YouTube, on Instagram for sure, LinkedIn, to see what tactics and strategies they're using, do that. I promise you that'll either A, reinforce the good things you're already doing, or give you ideas on how to improve it. So Ryan, thanks again for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Brad. And I will say this, I listen to your podcast regularly the last few years, and it's top notch. It's some of the best stuff I've seen, and I find a lot of interest in it. Even though I don't work in the industry full time, it's something that I'm always tracking, and I get a lot out of it. You don't have to be an LBM guy specifically to really take a lot of value from it.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That means a lot to me. Appreciate it, Ryan. As always, my friend, thank you for listening. Hopefully you found my conversation with Mr. Ryan Scaife to be valuable and worth your time. And if it was, please share it with your network. Now, our goal here is to have this be the best podcast you listen to. So if you have any feedback, good, bad, or otherwise, recommendations for topics or guests, do not hesitate to reach out to me directly at Bradley@BehindYourBackSales.com. Again, Bradley@BehindYourBackSales.com. And again, I'm always trying to improve, trying to think about our own business better. So I'm going to act on something that Ryan said. Ask for people to subscribe on YouTube. As you can see, if you were to go to YouTube and look for the Behind Your Back Sales Company, you will see we do not quite have millions of followers or hundreds, or anyway, the number goes down. I'm going to practice what I preach. Ask for what you want. Go to YouTube, subscribe. Our goal here, and you're going to see a lot more. We have a couple big ideas that I'm excited to share that will be video based to get more smart people involved in the conversation and share more insights and have more fun. And that will be through video. So a lot more to come on YouTube. Do yourself a favor. Get ahead of the hordes and the throngs of people that are going to clog the internet trying to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Get in there early. Do it. That's all we've got, my friends. I want to thank again Capital One Trade Credit for being our presenting sponsor. If you're interested in driving cash flow and revenue while decreasing risk, check out Capital One Trade Credit. As for us, we're going to close out like we always do, my friend. You are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.